It's 8 p.m. and farmer Jack Griffin has gone for a run along the beach when something catches his eye. At first, he thought it was a doll laying face down next to a grey bag, but he had this real unnerving feeling. As he approached, the baby was pink in colour with lots of black hair. Up close, he realised that this wasn't a doll, this was a newborn baby. He raced back home to get his nephew, Brendan. They both went to the beach together to confirm what Jack had seen. Jack was far too scared and horrified to go near the infant, but Brendan, who was only 18 at the time, approached the baby and turned him over. Immediately they knew that this wasn't a lifelike doll, this was a baby boy. They raced to get the guards, which is the term for the Irish police, and a local undertaker, Tom Cornane, came to the scene to baptise the child. He baptised this boy, baby John. On closer inspection, it seemed that the baby boy had fallen out of this grey bag, which had been washed in by the tide. An autopsy revealed that this infant had 28 stab wounds. 2 of those were through his heart. He was just 5 days old, and this absolutely horrified the local community. Not only had a newborn baby washed up on the beach, but he had been viciously attacked. A detailed investigation began to try and discover who this baby was and who his parents were. The Irish police began questioning lots of local people. They would dig into their personal lives, exposing incestuous relationships, extramarital affairs. They questioned every pregnant woman at the time who had recently had a baby. This led to nothing, and they began to believe that perhaps the perpetrator wasn't local to the area. 2 weeks later, a 30-year-old mother, Joanna Hayes, is brought to the attention of police. She lives around 80 kilometres north of Kerry. Joanna had gone to the hospital saying that she had a miscarriage. On closer inspection by the nurses, they discovered that she hadn't had a miscarriage at all. She had given birth to a full-term baby. Where the infant was remained a mystery. Joanna Hayes was a single mother who had been having an affair with a married man, Jeremiah Locke. She already had a daughter, Yvonne, with this man. In the 80s, in a very conservative Irish Catholic country, this was frowned upon. The Irish police believed that this was their breakthrough. They had found their perpetrator, and Joanne was charged with murdering baby John. Joanne and her family are brought in for questioning down the police station, and they admit to murdering baby John. However, they later withdrew their confessions and admit that Joanne did give birth to a full-term baby. However, this baby was stillborn, and they buried the infant at the family farm. To prove it, the family returned to the farm with the police and began searching for the infant. They found them wrapped in plastic in a stagnant pool of water. So Joanne did give birth to an infant, and tragically this baby was stillborn. The decision to bury this infant at the farm is horrendous in itself, but this surely exonerates Joanne from the murder of baby John. She couldn't possibly be the mother, and it's unknown what her mental state was at this time, having birthed a stillborn child. The family begin to say that they were coerced into giving false confessions. They said the police used physical violence, harassed them and intimidated them into making these detailed false confessions. Rather than exonerating Joanna Hayes, the guards, the Irish police, come up with this theory that she had twins, and that she buried one infant at the farm and murdered and disposed of the other infant, baby John, at sea. Blood tests were done on Joanna Hayes and Jeremiah Locke to see whether they are the birth parents of baby John. Now, their blood type matches with the infant found at the farm, blood type O. Baby John, however, has blood type A. With this information in mind, you would think that Joanna would be exonerated. She would be free. There would possibly be an apology. No, the police were adamant. They believed, despite the blood tests, that Joanna was the perpetrator. They are trying to pin a murder on a totally innocent woman. They are trying to destroy her reputation just so that they are not exposed for messing up the investigation. So they come up with this theory that Joanna was pregnant with twins, but there were two separate fathers. Now, this can happen, but it is incredibly rare in humans. So it's, from the brief research that I did, it's where the woman produces 2 eggs, which is how half of twins are conceived. And within a matter of days, she has sexual intercourse with 2 different men. So the first man fertilizes 1 egg and the second man fertilizes the other egg. I'm going to put the scientific term here, and I'm going to emphasize that this is incredibly rare, really, really rare in humans. This hypothesis that the police have put forward clearly illustrates a real misogyny that runs through society at this time. It can't possibly be that these men have got it wrong, that they've charged the wrong woman with murder. No, it's that this single mother who had an extramarital affair has had sexual intercourse with multiple men to the point where she conceived twins from 2 separate fathers, gave birth. One was a stillborn that she buried, and one she brutally murdered. In their minds, in the 80s, in this Catholic Irish society, being a single mother, having children out of wedlock, are all red flags. This is a society where divorce is still illegal. Contraception is only available through a doctor's prescription, and if the Catholic priests had their way, there would be no contraception at all. And there's just a lot of contempt for women in general. Justice Minister Simon Harris described this case as a defining moment in social history, as it exposed the hypocrisy and misogyny which was prevalent in Ireland at the time. So not only have the Irish police come up with this theory that Joanna birthed twins from separate fathers, they also try to say that perhaps baby John's blood type changed through decomposition. That's how far they were going to bend these facts and twist the evidence to try and pin this on Joanna Hayes. When it reached court, this theory was completely chucked out by the judge. It had no credibility. It stretched the realms of possibility. And 6 months after baby John was discovered on that beach, Joanna Hayes is released. The Irish police's obsession with Joanna Hayes and trying to prove this woman's guilt meant that genuine leads had gone cold. Finding the true birth parents of baby John was now going to prove very difficult. A tribunal called the Kerry Babies Tribunal was set up to look at the behaviour of the Irish police in this case. It was meant to look at the conduct of the Irish police, but ended up turning into some very bizarre medieval type witch hunt against Joanna Hayes. She was on stand for 5 days with thousands of questions thrown at her, mainly surrounding her sex life, how that has anything to do with the case of baby John, or how it helps in any way to move policing forward, is unknown. It also made wild presumptions and speculated that actually Joanna didn't give birth to a stillborn. She murdered her own infant by choking them to stop them from crying. Joanna strongly denied this, and this speculation went against the pathologist at the time, who said there wasn't enough evidence to draw any conclusions of how this baby died. The judge rejected any claim that the police coerced, harassed, or intimidated Joanna and her family into making false confessions. He rejected anything Joanna said and basically said that the police weren't that bad. He put this poor innocent woman, Joanna Hayes, on trial for days under intense questioning. They even had a psychiatrist dub Joanna a sociopath. 20 years later, under oath, they had that same psychiatrist who dubbed Joanna Hayes a sociopath admit that the definition of sociopath that he used to describe Joanna Hayes would basically apply to half the population. There was no real conclusion or explanation as to how and why Joanna and her family made detailed false confessions. Their statements lined up perfectly with the facts of the case, even though they were completely innocent of murdering baby John. This case raised some serious questions over the treatment of unmarried mothers. 1 year later, Joanna Hayes actually wrote a book called My Story. 4 members of the Irish police sued her and were given an out-of-court settlement of over €100,000. 34 years later, in 2018, Joanna Hayes agrees to give DNA in order to prove that she is not the biological mother of baby John. There are still Irish police, namely Jerry O'Carroll, who demand that she take the test because they still believe that she is the biological mother and that the DNA would prove their twins and 2 fathers theory. She took the test and obviously she was not baby John's mother, and the DNA finally proved that. With those DNA results, Joanna finally got an official apology from the Irish police for falsely accusing her. Superintendent Murphy stated, "I would like to sincerely apologise to Mrs. Hayes for the police conduct, as well as the awful stress and pain she has been put through as a result of the original investigation into this matter, which fell well short of the required standards." Joanna was also awarded €2.5 million in damages. No criminal proceedings, however, have been brought forward against the Irish police. So after over 30 years have gone by, with the Irish police still believing right up until the 11th hour that Joanna Hayes was guilty, she finally gets an apology and the exoneration that she deserves. In March 2023, so this year, an elder couple in their 50s and 60s were arrested using DNA in connection to baby John. They were believed to be the parents. As far as I can see, they were later released and the case remains unsolved. The undertaker, Tom, who baptised the baby John at the beginning, looks after his grave, and over the years it has been repeatedly vandalised. Anytime it would be vandalised, the undertaker Tom would replace it. Initially the grave was just a simple wooden cross, but he then upgraded it to a marble headstone. This marble headstone was repeatedly smashed with a sledgehammer, and time after time Tom would replace it. It was the only grave in that cemetery to be attacked, which makes Tom believe that the perpetrator was a local, and they're still there. Initially, that marble headstone had the words "I forgive" written on it. Tom, being a religious man, wrote those words, I believe, to free baby John. Baby John's, it was saying to his perpetrators, I forgive, I've moved on, I'm gonna let it go. After this marble headstone was smashed so many times, Tom removed those words. He couldn't bear to put them on anymore. He believes the person smashing the headstone is the perpetrator, and he couldn't bring himself to put I forgive on that headstone anymore due to the hatred and malice aimed towards this innocent baby boy. Interestingly, after those words were removed, the grave has never been attacked since. I honestly can't work that one out. So for some reason, whoever was attacking that gravestone really disliked the phrase I forgive. It was removed in 2004 and the grave has been untouched since. This case was brought to my attention because I'd never heard of it before, and Channel 4, I think they probably now released the documentary on the Kerry's babies. It came up in my news feed, and I'd never heard of it, and I felt like it was a case that really needed to be told. Desperately sad on so many aspects, very unjust in many ways. That was the case of the Kerry babies. This is probably going to be a much shorter video than my other ones. I did start working on H Homes, but I kind of lost interest in it a little bit. I might pick that back up. I think a lot of my American followers probably know quite a lot about H Homes and the murder castle. My name's Emma. This has been the Kerry Babies case. If you like my content, please remember to like, subscribe and comment, and I'll see you in the next one.